A man watches his brother get shoved into a black van. 19 days later, his brother suddenly comes home, but before he disappeared, he had a limp in his left leg. Now, he's limping on his right. When his brother calls him out on it, he looks down and immediately switches the limp back to his left leg. Even stranger, he claims he can't remember anything that happened during the 19 days he was missing. 19 days earlier, Jin-seok has just moved into a new house with his family. The moment their car stops outside, he gets a strange feeling. The house in front of him seems oddly familiar, almost as if he stood in this exact spot a long time ago. But Jin-seok clearly remembers that he's never been here before. The feeling quickly passes. More than the unfamiliar house, Jin-seok is focused on his older brother, Moo-yul. As far back as he can remember, Moo-yul has always been good at almost everything. He gets excellent grades, graduates from a prestigious university, and has a gentle personality. He doesn't smoke or drink. No matter what happens, he always seems more dependable than Jin-seok. Jin-seok, meanwhile, has already taken the college entrance exam several times. The pressure keeps building, and he now suffers from severe neurasthenia, forcing him to take medication every day. To Jin-seok, Moo-yul isn't just his older brother. He's more like someone Jin-seok has spent his whole life trying to catch up to, but never can. The only problem is that Moo-yul was in a car accident a year ago. His left leg was permanently injured, and he's walked with a limp ever since. As the movers begin carrying everything inside, one of the workers sees the two brothers and suddenly asks Jin-seok a strange question. "Is that man who just went outside really your brother?" Jin-seok has no idea why he's asking. Of course he is. The worker then asks how old his brother is. But before Jin-seok can answer, Moo-yul walks over and sends the worker to move something else. Jin-seok doesn't think much of it, but after they move into the house, another strange detail quickly appears. There are clearly 2 rooms upstairs, yet their father tells the brothers to share one for now. The room across the hall stays locked. Their father explains that the previous owner still has some belongings inside and will come back for them later, so no matter what happens, they're not allowed to go in. That night, the family is having dinner downstairs when a heavy thud suddenly comes from upstairs. Jin-seok immediately looks up. The sound is clearly coming from the locked room. Strangely, his parents and brother act like they didn't hear anything. Jin-seok is about to ask when thunder suddenly cracks outside. His mother tells him it was probably just the storm. Jin-seok can only wonder if the stress is starting to get to him. But later that night, while lying in bed with his headphones on, he hears another thud from upstairs. This time, he's sure it isn't thunder. Jin-seok walks over to the locked door. Just as he's about to touch the handle, Moo-yul suddenly appears behind him. Jin-seok quickly explains that he keeps hearing noises from inside. Moo-yul presses his ear against the door and listens for a long time. Nothing. When Jin-seok listens again, the room has gone quiet. Moo-yul thinks his brother's neurasthenia may be getting worse, so he takes him outside for a walk. It's pouring rain. After walking for a while, Jin-seok finally starts to calm down, but then their father suddenly calls Moo-yul. He says he can't find some documents at home and asks him to come back and help. Moo-yul tells Jin-seok to wait there and says he'll be right back. Jin-seok waits for a long time, but his brother never returns. Eventually, he starts walking home alone. Halfway back, he suddenly hears the sound of a violent struggle up ahead. Jin-seok looks toward the noise and sees several men attacking Moo-yul. His brother is quickly forced to the ground. Then they shove him into a black van. Jin-seok runs after it as fast as he can, shouting his brother's name. But there's no way he can catch the van. All he can do is memorize the license plate number. When he gets home, Jin-seok tells his parents what happened. The shock is so overwhelming that he collapses on the spot. The next day, the police begin investigating the kidnapping. Jin-seok never got a clear look at the kidnappers' faces, but he's certain he memorized the license plate. After checking it, however, the police tell him there is no vehicle registered under that number. They think he may have remembered it wrong. The rain was heavy, the lighting was poor, and Jin-seok has been taking psychiatric medication for a long time. But Jin-seok can't accept that. The van drove away right in front of him. How could the only clue he managed to remember not even be real? With no other evidence, the police have no choice but to wait for the kidnappers to make contact. 1 day passes, then 2, then more than 10. No one calls, no one asks for ransom. His brother seems to have vanished without a trace. During that time, Jin-seok keeps having the same nightmare. In the dream, a man is being held somewhere dark. He's repeatedly beaten and interrogated. Jin-seok can never see his face clearly, but the scene always feels strangely familiar. At the same time, strange noises keep coming from the locked room upstairs. Reality and his nightmares begin to blur together. Then, on the 19th day after Jin-seok disappears, he suddenly comes home on his own. He has no obvious injuries, but he can't remember anything that happened during the past 19 days. The doctor believes the kidnapping may have caused severe psychological trauma, leading his brain to block out that part of his memory. In other words, dissociative amnesia. Jin-seok is still worried, but at least his brother is back safely. Then the scene from the beginning plays out. Jin-seok suddenly limps on the wrong leg. And for the first time, Jin-seok begins to have a terrifying suspicion. The man standing in front of him may not be Jin-seok at all. That night, Jin-seok deliberately pretends to fall asleep at his desk. After a while, he senses someone standing behind him. Jin-seok picks up the mechanical pencil on the desk. Click by click, he pushes out the lead. Then the tip slowly moves toward Jin-seok's eye. Jin-seok fights back his fear and doesn't move. Only after the entire piece of lead drops onto the desk does Jin-seok seem convinced that he's really asleep. Then he quietly leaves the room. The moment the door closes, Jin-seok opens his eyes and follows him, and almost immediately, he sees the first thing that makes no sense. Jin-seok, who was limping just moments ago, walks normally as soon as he leaves the house. No limp, no hesitation. He's even walking faster than most people. Jin-seok flags down a taxi and follows him from a distance. When Jin-seok reaches his destination, he takes off the glasses he normally never goes without. Then he casually lights a cigarette like he's done it 1,000 times. Nothing about this matches the brother Jin-seok remembers. Jin-seok eventually enters a remote, run-down neighborhood. Several men see him and immediately greet him with respect. "Boss." Jin-seok watches from the shadows, then he freezes. Two of those men are the same police officers who came to his house after Jin-seok disappeared to investigate the kidnapping. If they were never cops, then what exactly happened 19 days ago? Jin-seok keeps following them, but he's soon spotted. The two men start chasing him, and for some reason, they call him Old Man. Jin-seok doesn't have time to think about the strange name. He just needs to get away. He manages to lose them in the alleys. But just as he starts to relax, someone comes up behind him and knocks him out with a drug. When Jin-seok wakes up again, he's somehow back in his own room. Everything looks exactly the way it did before he left. Jin-seok even acts like he's just waking up. In the same gentle voice as always, he asks Jin-seok why he spent the whole night sleeping at his desk. By now, Jin-seok can barely tell what's real anymore. He rushes into the bathroom and locks the door. From the other side, he confronts Jin-seok. He knows he followed him last night. Who were those fake cops? Why did those men call him boss? And why isn't his leg injured at all? Jin-seok just keeps telling him to calm down. Then he asks one question. Did Jin-seok take his medication yesterday? Jin-seok freezes. He suddenly remembers that one of his pills fell under the cabinet the day before, and he forgot to take it. Jin-seok uses that to explain everything. The pencil lead, the taxi, the men chasing him. All of it, he says, was just a hallucination caused by missing his medication. Jin-seok starts to doubt himself. He already suffers from severe neurasthenia, and he really did miss a dose. Could everything that happened last night have been nothing more than an unusually vivid nightmare? In the end, he chooses to trust his brother again. He even apologizes to Jin-seok for doubting him. Jin-seok isn't angry. Just like the perfect older brother Jin-seok has always known, he comforts him. Until Jin-seok leaves, Jin-seok goes back to the desk. The mechanical pencil is lying on the floor, and right beside it is the piece of lead that fell out the night before. If last night was only a dream, then why is this thing really here? More importantly, Jin-seok suddenly remembers something Jin-seok said earlier. The pencil lead, the taxi you took, those men, none of them were real. But Jin-seok never told his brother that he took a taxi last night, so how could Jin-seok know? At that moment, Jin-seok finally becomes sure everything that happened last night was real. The one who's lying isn't him, it's his brother. As soon as his mother gets home, Jin-seok tells her everything. She looks deeply shocked. She even says they should tell his father right away. But Jin-seok worries that if they act too soon, they could put his real brother in danger. So he suggests staying quiet for now and watching what happens again that night. His mother agrees. But late that night, when Jin-seok goes downstairs for water, he accidentally overhears her on the phone. She's repeating every secret he just told her, word for word, to the person on the other end. Jin-seok found out that his brother is fake. He found out the leg isn't injured. And he found out those two cops were fake too. Standing outside the door, Jin-seok feels his whole body go cold. So the problem isn't just his brother. His mother has been lying to him too. And from the sound of the conversation, his father is probably involved as well. Jin-seok accidentally steps on a creaking floorboard. His mother immediately comes out to check. He has no choice but to run out through the back door. Then he climbs up the outside wall in the rain, makes his way back to the second floor, and crawls into the bedroom through the window to pretend he's asleep. His mother soon pushes the door open. Jin-seok doesn't move. His whole body is soaked from the rain. All he can do is pray that she mistakes it for cold sweat. At last, the door closes. But the moment Jin-seok sits up, he realizes his mother never left. She's standing there in the dark, expressionless, staring at him. At that point, Jin-seok fully understands one thing. There isn't a single person in this house he can trust. He escapes through the window again. But the moment he rushes out the front door, he runs straight into his father on the way back. His mother comes out after him, and beside them, a strange man slowly walks closer. The three of them surround him. Jin-seok doesn't try to explain anything. He shoves past his father and runs. Barefoot, he sprints through the rain into the night. The people behind him chase after him. Luckily, he finally runs into real police officers. Jin-seok rushes into a police station and tells them everything that's been happening. His brother is fake. His mother is fake. His father may be fake too. Someone has trapped him in that house. They even planted fake cops to keep watch on him. The more the police listen, the more absurd it sounds. If all those people are imposters, then how could a grown man fail to recognize his own parents and older brother? To confirm his identity, the police pull up Jin-seok's records, and that leads to an even more inexplicable problem. The file says Jin-seok was born in 1977. One of the officers casually asks him a question. Then that means you're already in your 40s, right? But Jin-seok answers with complete seriousness. He's only 21. The officer thinks he's joking. How could someone born in 1977 possibly be 21 years old? Jin-seok is even more confused, because as far as he's concerned, the current year is 1997. At that point, the police finally tell him to look at the calendar on the wall. Jin-seok slowly raises his head. The year isn't 1997 at all. It's 2017. He looks around. Everyone is holding a smartphone he's never seen before. The TV on the wall is impossibly thin. Even the people appearing in the news are all unfamiliar. Finally, Jin-seok slowly walks over to a mirror. The person reflected in it is not a 21-year-old young man. It's a middle-aged man whose face already shows the passage of time. Only then does Jin-seok realize the truly terrifying truth. It isn't just that his family may be fake. Even what he believes about himself is fake. He has spent all this time thinking he was living in 1997, but in reality, 20 full years have already passed. To find the answers, Jin-seok returns to the house. The people pretending to be his parents and brother are gone for the moment, but from the locked room upstairs, he hears a familiar piece of music. This time, Jin-seok finally opens the door. It isn't a normal room at all. There are mannequins on the floor made to look like dead bodies. Bloodstains and murder weapons have been arranged around them. The entire room is clearly designed to recreate a murder scene. This time, the three people pretending to be his family stop acting. They tell Jin-seok that 20 years ago, a murder took place in this house. A woman and her daughter were killed here. The killer didn't steal anything, and there was no clear motive. The case was never solved. Eventually, it went cold, but the victim's family never truly gave up. Years later, they finally traced the case to one person, Jin-seok. After capturing him, they repeatedly questioned and threatened him. But no matter what they did, Jin-seok kept insisting that he had never killed anyone. He wasn't simply refusing to confess. He genuinely had no memory of it. And those recurring nightmares he had been seeing weren't dreams at all. The man being beaten and interrogated was Jin-seok himself. They were fragments of real memories that had been locked away, occasionally breaking through. To find out whether Jin-seok had truly lost his memory or was deliberately refusing to admit what he had done, they brought in an expert familiar with hypnosis and psychological disorders. The expert believed Jin-seok may have suffered an extremely severe psychological trauma 20 years earlier. To protect itself, his mind had blocked out the most painful memories. If they tried to force him to remember directly, he would only resist even more. To unlock those memories, they would have to return his mental state to the way it was before the trauma happened. And that was how the massive deception built around Jin-seok began. Using hypnosis, the expert makes Jin-seok believe that time has gone back to 1997. He believes he's still 21 years old. He believes his parents are still alive. And he believes his real brother, Moo-seok, is still by his side. The hypnosis expert plays the role of his father. They bring in a woman to play his mother. And the man who has been pretending to be Moo-seok takes on the role of the brother Jin-seok trusts more than anyone. The pills Jin-seok takes every day for his supposed neurasthenia aren't just ordinary medication either. They're used together with the hypnosis to keep him under the suggestion. That's why, after missing a single pill that day, he starts noticing more and more cracks in the world around him. And the so-called new house was never chosen at random. It's the actual scene of the murder from 20 years ago. They deliberately keep that room locked. Then, using old crime scene photos, they slowly recreate everything inside. The goal is to make Jin-seok relive that night when the time is right. Now there's also an explanation for why the mover asked about Yoo-seok's age when he first saw Jin-seok. To an outsider, a man in his 40s and his supposed older brother simply don't look like they could be normal siblings of those ages. And that rainy night was originally meant to be the most important step in the entire plan. The murder 20 years ago also happened on a rainy night. They planned to use similar weather to recreate the conditions from that night as closely as possible. Then, they would send Jin-seok into the room alone. Using sounds, objects, and details from the crime scene, they hoped to trigger his buried memories. That's why the fake Yoo-seok deliberately took him outside for a walk. It gave the others inside the house time to set everything up. But no one expected the fake Yoo-seok himself to be under investigation by the real police for other violent crimes and fraud. The real police suddenly showed up and took him away on the spot. Jin-seok saw the whole thing from a distance, but because the hypnosis had convinced him that he was still a 21-year-old younger brother, what he saw naturally became something else in his mind. His brother being kidnapped by strangers. To keep the entire deception from falling apart, the others had no choice but to send their own men to the house pretending to be police officers. Then they told Jin-seok that the license plate number he remembered didn't exist. 19 days later, the fake Yoo-seok finally returned. To keep the story going, they made up another explanation. They claimed the kidnapping had caused traumatic memory loss. Ironically, that fake case of dissociative amnesia mirrored Jin-seok's real condition almost perfectly. But after that, they couldn't get another rainy night suitable for reenacting the murder. The longer the plan dragged on, the more cracks began to appear. The fake Yoo-seok limping on the wrong leg, smoking, taking off his glasses, sneaking out at night, the fake cops, the men calling Jin-seok old man. And finally, his mother's phone call. Piece by piece, Jin-seok tears apart the false world built around him. But even after learning all of this, there's still one question he refuses to accept. Did he really kill that woman and her daughter? He insists he didn't. By now, the fake Yoo-seok has lost patience. The hypnosis plan has failed, and he has no intention of wasting any more time. Jin-seok finds a chance to escape from the car. The fake Yoo-seok drives after him. In the chaos, the car crashes. And while trying to get away, Jin-seok is struck by another vehicle. That violent impact finally breaks open the memories he has kept buried for 20 years. In 1997, Jin-seok has an ordinary, loving family. His father, his mother, his older brother, Yoo-seok, and him. Then a sudden car accident destroys everything. His parents die at the scene. Yoo-seok is critically injured and rushed to the hospital, where he urgently needs treatment and surgery. Almost overnight, Jin-seok goes from being the younger brother everyone takes care of to the only person who can save Yoo-seok. At the same time, a severe economic crisis makes jobs harder and harder to find. Most people are struggling just to survive themselves. Jin-seok doesn't have enough education or experience. He has no property he can use as collateral. He asks everyone he can for help. He tries borrowing money. He looks for any possible solution, but he still can't come up with the medical expenses Yoo-seok desperately needs. The doctors keep warning him. If they wait much longer, Yoo-seok may not make it. Out of desperation, Jin-seok posts a message online. If anyone is willing to pay him enough money to save his brother, he'll do any job they ask. Before long, a stranger contacts him. The man is willing to pay, but there is one condition. Jin-seok has to kill someone. He stares at the computer and struggles with the decision all night. He knows that once he says yes, his life will never go back to the way it was. But Yoo-seok, lying in that hospital bed, is now the only family he has left in the world. In the end, Jin-seok leaves his contact information. The stranger gives him an address. The target is the woman who lives in the house. There are also 2 children inside. The client makes one thing very clear. Only the woman is to be killed. No matter what happens, Jin-seok must not hurt the 2 children. That night, Jin-seok goes to the house as instructed. He finds the key that was hidden there in advance and quietly lets himself inside. But when he finally reaches the bedroom door, he still can't bring himself to do it. The woman is asleep, holding her young son in her arms. The sight of the family sleeping together immediately reminds Jin-seok of the family he has just lost. In the end, he lowers the knife and decides to leave, but the woman hears a noise and comes out of the room. At first, she thinks her husband has come home. Then she sees the knife in Jin-seok's hand and screams in fear. Jin-seok panics even more than she does. He keeps apologizing. He tells her he's leaving right now. He just begs her to stop screaming. The woman finally covers her mouth. If things had ended there, that night might never have turned into what it became. But then her daughter upstairs wakes up from the noise. When the girl comes downstairs and sees a stranger holding a knife, she immediately screams and runs back to her room. Jin-seok instinctively chases after her. He isn't trying to kill the girl. He's simply terrified that her screaming will make the entire situation spiral out of control. The girl desperately tries to shut the door. Jin-seok pushes back with all his strength. In the struggle, the knife in his hand accidentally plunges into her body. The moment Jin-seok sees the blood, he freezes. He had already decided not to kill anyone, and now he's actually killed the one person who was never supposed to die. The girl's mother rushes over. When she sees her daughter on the floor, she starts screaming again. The non-stop screaming pushes Jin-seok. Already on the edge of a breakdown, completely over the edge, he lunges at the woman. By the time he comes back to his senses, a second person is lying on the floor. The job was supposed to involve killing only one person. Instead, the mother and daughter are both dead. In a daze, Jin-seok walks downstairs. The young boy is awake too. He has no idea what happened upstairs. He simply asks Jin-seok where his mother and sister went. Jin-seok can't bring himself to raise the knife against a third person, so he lies to the boy. He tells him to go back to bed, count from 1 to 100, and repeat it a few times. Then his mother and sister will come back. The boy believes him. He obediently returns to his room and starts counting over and over. As Jin-seok prepares to leave, he happens to notice a family photo on the wall. The man in the picture makes him stop immediately. Jin-seok knows him. It's Yoo-seok's attending physician. Jin-seok finally understands why the voice on the phone always sounded so familiar. The man who hired him to kill someone was the husband of that family. Jin-seok immediately goes to confront the doctor. Why would he pay a stranger to murder his own wife? The answer is tied to the same economic crisis. The doctor's family is also in serious financial trouble. He had taken out an insurance policy on his wife in advance. According to the plan, once she died, he would collect the payout and use the money to keep himself and his 2 children afloat. That's why he kept stressing one condition. Only the wife was to die. The children could not be harmed under any circumstances. But now his daughter is dead too. The entire plan has collapsed. The doctor no longer sees Jin-seok as someone he hired to solve his problem. Now, he sees him as the man who killed his daughter. Their confrontation takes place high above the ground. Overcome with rage, the doctor tries to push Jin-seok over the edge, but in the struggle, he is the one who goes over the railing. Jin-seok instinctively reaches out to save him, but he can't hold on. The doctor falls to his death. In a single night, 3 people are dead. The girl dies after being accidentally stabbed. Her mother dies when Jin-seok loses control. And the doctor, the man who planned everything in the first place, ultimately dies because of his own scheme. Jin-seok can't bear what he's done. All he wanted was to save his brother. Instead, in trying to save one family member, he destroyed another entire family. And eventually, his mind completely seals away the memory of that night. 20 years later, Jin-seok finally wakes from those memories in the hospital. The man who has been pretending to be his brother is sitting beside him. In his hand is a syringe, already prepared with a drug. Now that Jin-seok has recovered his memory, there is no longer any reason to continue the hypnosis or the reenactment. The man is ready to end everything himself. But Jin-seok doesn't beg for his life. He removes the oxygen mask and says only that he wants to apologize to the victim's family. The fake Yoo-seok immediately understands. Jin-seok really remembers. So the man finally asks the question he has spent 20 years trying to answer. Why did you kill my mother and sister? Did someone hire you? Was it my father? Hearing those questions, Jin-seok finally realizes who the man really is. He is the only child Jin-seok spared 20 years ago. The little boy who lay in bed counting from 1 to 100, waiting for his mother and sister to come back. After the murders, the boy lost his mother and sister. Then his father died as well. Relatives divided up the family's property, and he was eventually sent to an orphanage. For the next 20 years, he kept searching for the person who destroyed his family. But the deeper he investigated, the more he began to suspect something he never wanted to face. Before his mother was murdered, his father had taken out an insurance policy on her. Was that really just a coincidence? Or was his own father the one who started everything? He finds Jin-seok. He tortures him. He hypnotizes him. He even spends an enormous amount of money rebuilding the world of 1997 around him, not only for revenge, but because he needs an answer. He wants someone to tell him that his father wasn't behind it, even as that possibility becomes harder and harder to believe. Now he only needs Jin-seok to confirm it himself. Jin-seok knows the real answer. The doctor did hire him. The doctor originally wanted only his wife killed, so he could collect the insurance money. The man he has spent 20 years hunting as the person responsible for his family's destruction was actually his own father. But Jin-seok looks at him and chooses not to say it. 20 years ago, he already took this boy's mother and sister away. If he now tells him that the tragedy was actually set in motion by the father he trusted most, it would destroy him all over again. Jin-seok shakes his head. He says no one hired him. He did everything himself. All the responsibility is his. But the lie is far too obvious. The fake Jin-seok has spent 20 years investigating this case. How could he really believe that? The more Jin-seok denies it, the more certain the man becomes that his worst suspicion is true. He doesn't kill Jin-seok. He simply walks out of the hospital room in a daze. A nurse reminds him that there is no exit at the other end of the hallway. If he wants the elevator, he needs to go the opposite way. But the man acts as if he hasn't heard her. Not long after, the nurse notices that a window is open. The man who spent 20 years searching for the killer and the truth has jumped from the building. Back in the hospital room, Jin-seok makes his own choice. He picks up the syringe that was originally meant to kill him. Then, he injects the drug into himself. For 20 years, he survived by forgetting. Now that every memory has returned, he can no longer go back to the world where he believed he was innocent. In the final scene, the movie returns to 1997. At that time, none of the tragedy has happened yet. A young Jin-seok is standing by a river. A little boy walks over and offers him a lollipop. Jin-seok smiles and politely refuses. Then the boy hears his family calling his name from a distance. He turns and runs back to them. Standing there are his father, his mother, and his sister. The family walks away together, laughing and talking. On the other side, Jin-seok's real parents and brother are also waiting for him. He goes back to his own family too. By the end, two people finally recover the memory and the truth they have spent 20 years searching for. But at the same time, they discover that some answers, once truly recovered, can be far more painful than forgetting.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoy crime twists, revenge traps, legal loopholes, and survival stories where one mistake changes everything, make sure to subscribe to Traplix Cinema. Every story here starts with a trap and ends with a truth that flips everything you thought you knew.